I'm live. I'm going to be live in a second here. Shalom, shalom. Yo, people are already here. What fun. Once again, I'm just going to wait until I pop up on the monitor, and here I am. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. Hello to Sneezer, Robert, Radar, BMXers who are in the house. Maybe someone else. No, it says 4 people. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Either way, hello, hello, hello. Nice to see you. I hope you are all having a wonderful Thursday. And you know what? We're just going to jump right into it. We're going to jump right in. So first of all, there was a discussion the other, was it yesterday, the day before, on the way that Yeshua felt about the Jewish leadership, right? We were talking about the destruction of the temple. We were talking, I don't like this thing. Put it down. Whatever. This little thing over here that's flying up, a flyaway, if you will. But that doesn't matter. Okay. Peace and Coffee said that Jesus said this about the Jewish leadership, and he's quoting the New Testament, and he says, "All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do ye not according to their works, for they say and do not do." Maybe something along those lines, because I see it here, but I may have cut it off when I cut and pasted it. Yeah, so he's basically saying in this verse, right, Peace and Coffee said that he wasn't really for the leadership at the time. And he also says, he quoted another verse about ritual purity. And he said, and he's quoting, "When he saw them, he said, 'Go, show yourselves to the priest.' And as they went, they were cleansed." Meaning that you could disagree with the leadership, but the laws of ritual purity, right, and ritual cleanliness and uncleanliness still held. And there's one last verse that he sent me on Facebook in the DMs, and he says there was a story about a woman bleeding, and he says that I think one of the Gospels says that he told this woman to go to the priests according to the custom, and that's where it ended. So, you know what? I don't like the way that I did my hair. There we go. So we can see, but it was bugging me. So we can see that there's a kind of, much better. There's a kind of, it's not ambiguity, it's kind of a twofold thing, because on the one hand, we see that the New Testament says, anyway, that Yeshua, that Jesus did go with ritual worship, but he didn't necessarily go with the scribes, the Pharisees, Chazal, our sages, right? And so, on the one hand, he did go along with the temple worship, and he did understand that there is obviously ritual purity and impurity, but it was kind of like, don't do what was the verse according to Peace and Coffee? He said, "Do ye not according to their works, for they say and do not do." Something like that. I may be saying it wrong because I was copying and pasting, and some of it may have been cut off, but I kind of understand what he's saying. It's like saying that the root is a just and righteous root, but some of the fruit that comes out is not ripe, is bitter, is rotten, whatever the case may be. So just because the tree has some bad fruit doesn't negate the fact that the root of the tree is straight and true and honest. So something like that. So I understand that kind of duality about the way that Jesus, let's say, treated the scribes, the scholars, the Pharisees, Chazal, our sages. Okay, let's see. Sneezer, a few days ago, was it 2 days ago? He did, again, one of his wonderful things, and he did a time-stamped comment on the different things. So I'm just going to go. We were talking about honesty, and BMXers and Robert had the going back and forth on honesty in business, honesty with the government, and BMXers told a couple of nice stories in the comments there about how his honesty got him in trouble. And Sneezer says, "I agree. Honesty is the best policy, and the prices paid for it always educate. Part of my revelation," said Sneezer, "was that world peace is inevitable. The only thing we can do to delay it is lie." I think that is really, really powerful. It really, really is. World peace is inevitable. The only thing we can do to delay it is lie. It's seemingly such a simple thing. And I am not a man who speaks in absolutes, but this certainly does hit me right in the feels, right in the heart. It really, really does, in the best possible way. That I love the beauty of that line, world peace is inevitable. It's like you'd have to really actually make an effort and have something twisted about yourself, and we all do, right? But in order to delay the coming of world peace. And in some ways, it's a beautiful line and a beautiful way to phrase it. And on the other hand, if we look at reality, and reality at any time, really, it doesn't have to be nowadays, it doesn't even have to be in this part of the world where war is always raging. It's like world peace is inevitable, and yet we've never quite been there, have we? meaning that we are constantly delaying it. And I'm talking about on the level of the individual, you with yourself. We each know the things where we lie to ourselves, we lie to others. It's a human thing. But I do believe that it's also true that it's something that literally puts a barrier between us and peace within ourselves, peace within our families, our communities, our neighbors, and it goes out and out and out, outward, right, like a ripple effect, and eventually reaching world peace. Sneezer continued, the origin of touch wood, right, because I did touch wood or knock on wood. He said, the origin of touch wood or knock on wood is, to my understanding, waking up the wood fairies for luck. So I don't think I ever knew that at the time when I was like, what's the origin of that? I think I may have known. I don't think I knew. And that's a wonderful thing, the wood fairies. I like that. It's like the wood elves, right, in Lord of the Rings, that there are elves of different sorts. And Legolas is a green leaf. All right, let's see. He continues and says, let me insert there, right, talking about creation and nothingness and things coming from nothing. And I mentioned the fact that the Sefer Yetzirah, attributed to our patriarch Abraham, says that God created things yesh me'ayin, asa et eino yeshno, right, something from nothing. So he says, Sneezer said, creation didn't come out of nothing. It came out of the creator. Nothing has ever existed when there is only one thing. That one thing is God. So it's never nothingness. If you say that he's basically saying that as far as he's concerned, there is no yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. That something is from God, which is not nothing. Interestingly, God in some texts and books and ideas is called Ein Sof. Ein Sof literally means infinite. And part of the reason why it is called Ein Sof, there are different reasons why one of the nicknames, if you will, for the divine and the Most High is Ein Sof, is because we as finite beings cannot fathom the infinite. We as finite beings have no connection to the infinite in like the immediate sense. And yet, we can have a connection insofar as our actions go, right? What does he say in the beginning of Gladiator? What we do in life echoes for eternity. And I've said this before in the chat because there is something to that. So he says it's nothing has never existed. There has never been nothing because there has always been something, that something being God. Now, whether or not you can perceive it, whether or not you can embody it, whether or not you can, what's the word I'm looking for that he used? I don't remember. But the point is that we can't know God absolutely, but we can know different shades of God. We can know different revelations of God. And in doing that, we do connect to the infinite. We do connect to that Ein Sof. Despite us being finite beings, we do have a connection insofar as we embody that image of God that we are meant to be through Torah, through commandments, through being good, honest, righteous people. That is how we, the finite, can be infinite. Because after this body is in the earth and decays and becomes worm food, the things that we did, the Torah we learned, the good deeds that we have engaged in, those things live on. They really, truly do, even when the body is already in the earth and completely turned to dust. There's more from Sneezer. I will stop for now, go to the chat from now. I have the chat from yesterday and the chat from the day before that I wanted to get to, but I can't just let you good people be in the chat here and not acknowledge that. So hello, shalom everyone, said Sneezer. Radar Shadow is here. Still waiting, BMXers, it appears so, Radar said. Every knee will bow, every tongue will cry, Adoniya. Do you mean Adonai or Adoniya? Right? Kol berech tichra v'chol lashon tishtachave. Yes. Kol berech tichra Kol lashon, well, what is the word in Hebrew? Anyway, yes, every knee will bow and every tongue will cry, Adonai. Yes, indeed. Nancy Roach, or Roch, I keep forgetting. Hello, Nancy, good to see you. Sneezer says, I still got 10 minutes of yesterday's vid to watch. Thank you, Sneezer, for your such dedication. I do appreciate it. I deeply appreciate the vote of confidence. Zechariah chapter 1 is a perfect example of the angel of the Lord, says Robert Harrison. Right? Still going strong with that. Sneezer says, but that was before he died. Up till the moment he died, a temple was in charge. Then within 70 years, it was no more. Right. And, in the year 70 of the Common Era, Rome destroyed our second temple, and it has yet to be rebuilt. Radar says, legalusum was a thing he was less in favor of. That's my take anyway. Legalism. Right, okay, legalism. On the other hand, if I'm understanding the phrasing correctly, there is a need for it. You need to have a code of conduct within Jewish law. You need to have, from all the various opinions that were around at the time of what rabbinic law ought to be, you needed to have some sort of guiding principle for the mob, the masses, the people. Because, Chazal, our sages, the Pharisees, the scribes, the scholars, they were like the elite, and other sect leaders were the elites. And the Essenes out in the desert did their own thing and came for temple worship, but basically kept to themselves in the desert of Judah. So the legalism has its negativity and its bad sides, but I think it was necessary, especially when you consider the fact that the Hashmonai dynasty, it came on the cusp of the Greek, the Lucidians, right? Was that it? Lucidites, I don't remember. The Greeks, anyway, some faction of the Greeks who came and took over, and then there was, Antiochus IV, Antiochus Epiphanes, and then the miracle of Hanukkah and everything. And so after all that, people were like, look, we just had a major problem with the Greeks coming here and turning Hebrews into Greeks and forbidding the reading of the Torah, forbidding the keeping of the Sabbath, forbidding the circumcision of our males. We need to get a few things straight if this is going to survive, this thing of ours that we have here called the Hebrew faith. And then, and certainly after the destruction of the temple, then it became more than any other time, the Jewish religion, right? Rabbinic Judaism. And that's not a slur, right? And that's not a bad thing, but it was a necessity which was born out of exile and destruction and infighting. And that's the negativity that I see in it. And legalism, it has its positive sides. And I think that I would rather focus on that. But less in favor of. I hear what you're saying. There is probably something to that, even though I don't know the New Testament too well at all, having only read it once in my life. Robert says, honestly, if you look at the Shroud of Turin, it resembles Jonathan. Well, thank you, though I would think it resembles a ton of people who looked just like me, with long hair and a beard. I'm sure there are, and always were, many of us around. BMXers, I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. In a bag I'm useless, but not for long, the future is coming on. It's true, it is. Damon not Elburn, what's his name? Anyway, the dude, right, from Blur, who later joined with Gorillaz, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're the ones who sing this song. I didn't see, but I heard that in the recent Glastonbury Festival, he was all pro-Palestine and getting the crowd all riled up. Oh well. You can't blame someone who has never been here and has not faced what we're facing. So, good for you, Damon. Sneezer says, and of course we pretty much constantly lie. Yes, my goal is to lie less, a little bit less, with every passing day, every passing week. But yeah, definitely a lot of lies. BMXer says, Robert, also Haile Selassie. Right? Haile Selassie in regards of, that Haile Selassie, that the Shroud of Turin resembles Haile Selassie. I see. I see. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop right now and go to the chat from yesterday or from 2 days ago. Which would it be? Which would it be? Let's see which one I click on. From Tuesday. Okay, so I have just a few that I didn't get to read on Tuesday, and I will do that now. Taylor said, after struggling with Christianity, I finally figured. Oh, no, I read that one. I'm sorry. The one underneath. Mr. Pig said, just nicotine for me, because we were discussing herb at the time. Just nicotine for me, not even alcohol for me. Used to smoke weed, and something told me I'm done with it. That was several months ago. You know what? I got that same feeling about alcohol, even though the Nazarite is not prohibited from drinking alcohol, only things that come from grapes. But it was like, yeah, I'm done with it. So I understand what he's saying. Definitely. Definitely. Hail to Mary, that is Ghost Spooky, said, I should mention, since I talked about Jesus in the past, searching, I'm Catholic now. And that's all I need to say about it, just for you to know, Jonathan. Well, congrats on the conversion. Any perspective you reject, said Sneezer, will leave you missing out. Wait, still Jewish, says Hail to Mary. I don't understand. You're Jewish and you're Catholic? A Juthalic, he says. He says he's a Juthalic. I honestly don't know what that means. I'm not sure how that comes together. Both sides are correct, said Netzarim Nazarite, and incorrect if you look at it right. I'm not sure what to say about that. Look, because once again, I don't speak in absolutes, and I usually don't think in real absolutes, but how can one be Jewish and Catholic? You can be Jewish sort of by lineage. If you're born to a Jewish mother, then halachically, or by rabbinic law, you are Jewish, and you're going to die a Jew. If you convert, it doesn't make you not Jewish, it makes you Jewish who took on another religion, for whatever that's worth. So, I suppose that a Catholic conversely would say, no, when you're baptized into the Catholic Church, or when you go through the rituals and you're confirmed, whatever the case may be, when you are fully converted, then you will die Catholic, and you were a Jew. They probably, I'm not sure. Taylor says, Sneezer, I see Jesus as a feminine energy, but most Christians don't see this at all. So that is a dead end. My exegesis has to become more extreme. I used to know the meaning of this word. I'm just going to look it up right now. Exegesis, critical explanation or interpretation of a text, especially of Scripture. Okay, so he's saying that his interpretation and his research in Scripture had to become more extreme. Okay, all right. Mr. Pig says THC in the long term, several years, can drain the life force. Right, so we were talking about herb, we were talking about THC. I agree, it's all about how you use it, right? Because it just grows like that, it's just a plant, and it's for you to use or abstain from using, and it all depends on actually how you get it, how you do it. What is it that you do with it? Where are you taking this plant? So yeah, in the long term, it can drain the life force. On the other hand, it doesn't have to, but for certain people, that's definitely the case, definitely the case. Sneezer said to Taylor, me too, a lover-nurturer, right? The feminine, right? A lover-nurturer. I've come to understand that as spirit, and Jesus was just full of spirit. So the feminine is represented in the word spirit, he says, and Jesus was full of spirit. Okay. Netzarim Nazarite said, I also made a vow to not use cannabis. Cannabis users are at a higher risk of heart attack and stroke. I was a daily smoker. Wow, so you made it part of your vow. That is really amazing. Good for you to take that on like that and make it part of a vow. I mean, a separate vow, obviously, from the Nazarite vow, because the Nazariteship has nothing to do with cannabis, so it was a separate vow. I wonder, Netzarim Nazarite, I know you may not be watching right now, I wonder how many vows you are under. Incidentally, and nothing to do with Netzarim Nazarite, according to Torah, and by that I mean, well, Midrashic teachings and halachic scholars, we, Hebrew people at any rate, are not meant to bind ourselves with more and more vows. We are meant to not segregate ourselves and flog ourselves and and put ourselves in a box of limitations and narrowness. We are supposed to choose where to be narrow, right? To choose the Torah and the commandments, which narrow us to begin with. But ordinarily, the Torah is by and large against taking on more and more restrictions and restraints, and because you need to live life, right? You need to be part of this world. You need to be part of society, part of a community, perhaps. And if you're restricting yourself, people do it all the time. People have done it. People will continue to do it, which is why I have nothing against what Nitzarim Nazarite does. We each have our own things in which we ought to restrict ourselves, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, for different reasons, no judgment. But it's interesting that he took on no cannabis too as a vow. So Taylor says no. Judaism is heavily constructed and practical based. There's not enough rituals in Christianity unless you're Catholic. I see. So Taylor 26 was looking for that religious, ritualistic kind of living. That's very, very interesting. Very interesting. And I can see that because, when you're busying yourself with ritual worship in your day-to-day life, and that really is you becoming the temple in a practical way, where you yourself are carrying out different rituals and traditions, not just in what you think, but in what you do, how you act, and what you eat, and whether or not, and well, whatever it is that that Hail to Mary did or would do, is doing. Smoke in general makes me less alert in these days. When I need to be, I'll stick to incense. Incense is lovely. There are people who say, well, first of all, halacha says, and the Torah says, that you are not allowed, unless you are a priest who is making the incense in order to burn it on the golden altar in the holy of the temple or tabernacle, you are not allowed to make the precise incense that was used in the temple, made of those 11 herbs. There was actually a house, a priestly house called Avtinas, and the house of Avtinas would add something to the 11 spices in order to make the smoke rise straight up in like a pillar. And they were very jealous of the secret. And our sages did not see them favorably, and they didn't take kindly to the fact that the house of Avtinas did not share their secret of what is it that they put in there to make the smoke rise up in a straight line. And they also had a house, a person of the Levitical house called Hugras, the son of Levi, who used to know, what is it called? He used to know a specific type of, let's say, melody or tune, and how to vocalize it, and he would not teach others how to do it. That appears in Yoma, in the Mishnah that pertains to the Holiday of Atonement, Yom Kippur. Very interesting stuff, very interesting. Taylor said to Sneezer, so you agree that Jesus is partly female? Sneezer retorted, I think the essence of Christianity is ignored in every structure, especially the churches. Few have it mostly right, even. Wow. I mean, I wouldn't know because I'm not a Christian and I don't follow Yeshua, but I know that it can be difficult once, as an individual, you find a path that is so in sync with who you are and what you're doing, that aligns so near completely with your ideals and your values and what you consider to be straight and true and obvious to you. And you look at others, and despite you trying not to judge, you're like, there's something lacking there. There's something missing there. And that's also what I said about the individual versus the community, the congregation, where we all lack in some way. We all fail in something. We all fall short of our own ideals and the ideals of others. But as a congregation, as a group, as a collective, we are able to rise up and elevate ourselves together despite our individual faults and frailties. So yeah, I hear that. Some people are very far from what is to you very obvious. And it's not even a question of take the beam out of your own eye. I don't think so. I think there's like a genuine seeking, right? A genuine interest in understanding what is it that people are missing? What is it that is missing the mark? What is it that I could see that others can't? And again, not in a condescending way, but I understand what Sneezer is saying. And I keep reminding myself, to each his own, to each his own. It's not my job, right, to elevate anybody else but me. It's not my job to educate anyone else but me. And I think that in doing so, in trying to elevate myself and trying to educate myself as a direct result of that, there will be a kind of, let's say, aura, if you will, something that reacts outward to what I'm trying to do inward. Something like that. I'm butchering what's going through my mind right now, right? I'm not able to properly phrase it. Okay, there's more in the chat from 2 days ago, there's more in yesterday's chat, but right now let's go back to today's chat. Let's go back to today's chat. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we had the Z. Okay, BMXers. No, I mean, wait, what? Where was I? BMXers says also resemble Rastafari Makonnen. Yeah, you think I look like Haile Selassie? I don't know about that. Sneezer says, anytime I have looked to where another has said there is nothing, I have found something vital overlooked. I'll read that again. He said, anytime I have looked to where another has said there is nothing, I have found something vital overlooked. That is very, very cool. That is very cool. And I'm inclined to sort of innately agree with you, even though I don't know precisely what you mean when you say that, Sneezer. They say that in the Talmud it says that the blessing can only reside in that which is hidden from the eye. Now, I don't know if you people are familiar with The Little Prince by Saint Exupéry, the book, but the fox, I think it's the fox, he tells the little prince before they say goodbye, I think, he says, remember, and I'm paraphrasing, the most important thing is that which is hidden from the eye. You know what, since I'm quoting The Little Prince, I want to find that quote exactly, so you'll forgive me. The most important things... where is it? Here. The important things in life you cannot see with your eyes, only with your heart. That is a great quote, because it's very humbling, I think, because we are visual creatures. Our brain, a lot of it is devoted to the visual processing. Our brain, our eyes, there's a connection there. We are meant, Hebrew people, to look at the Torah and do it. We are meant to look at the different things that we're doing, our covenant, our tzitzis, let's say, those who do wear them. We are meant to look and remember the commandments, remember the covenant. We are very visual creatures. But the most important things in life are not what you see. It's what's in your heart, what you can see with your heart, as it were, right? The important things in life you cannot see with your eyes, only with your heart. There is something to that. There is definitely something to that. So anytime I have looked to where another said there is nothing, I have found something vital overlooked. That's what that made me think of. Because, and to some degree the Talmud agrees here, right? The blessing can reside in things which are hidden away. Yeah, definitely. BMXer says, Ein Sof reminds me of Aleph Aleph, the New York Nazarite. Yeah, well, he's a Kabbalist. He's a Kabbalist, all right. Oh, Robert, BMXer says to Robert, I'm saying Yeshua and Haile Selassie alike. Well, other Rastafarians believe, unless I'm mistaken, that Haile Selassie is the reincarnation, the second coming of Jesus, right? Andre, I gotta look him up, not familiar, he said. Yeshua and Haile Selassie look alike on that shroud, said BMXers. I concur, said Radar. I'm not sure if you concur with what I said or what was being said at the time. Okay. BMXer says, of Ethiopia, descendant of Solomon, which Rastas worship. Imagine that they were against mutilating kids. Who you were? Imagine believing God wants you to cut part of his glorious body off yourself. I do my best to only speak truth. Usually the pastor, and then that was cut off. I don't know exactly, but okay. Not sure what you see. Once again, the chat continues, and I talk about this or that or the other, and then I'm not able to understand the context of what's written there. This is frustrating. What am I going to do about this? What am I going to do? Let's just plow right ahead here. BMXer says, by the way, on the subject of alcohol, I think alcoholics should be given a second chance. I am a fan of second chances and third chances. I agree that it's not a healthy lifestyle, but I get them. Okay? I mean, I get it too, I suppose, not as a disease, but just as the desire to drink and disinhibit yourself, be more loose, and then it's just it does something to you. There's a genetic component to addiction, but I don't know if you necessarily need to be prone to addiction genetically to get hooked on alcohol. Some alcohol is damn good, and in small doses, in some ways, it can be a lot of fun. And like I said, it's a very social thing, and there is the positive element of the wine and of the alcohol. There is a positive element to it. Is it worth the risk? That's on an individual level for people to decide. Robert says, I know HN, it's like if a Jewish gentleman became a Buddhist. It's like, bam, he doesn't become Chinese, he's still a Jew. Right, exactly. Radar says, when a substance becomes your idol is the problem. A good way to put it. A good way to put it. There is something to that for sure. Sneezer says, Jesus opened the birthright, extending it to all others. Extending what? I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to see what he said there. Oh, this is frustrating me. It's frustrating. Spanish or English? Espanol. Do you read chat? Hello, Alec. Hi there. Yes, I do. BMXer says, I think there's 500,000 and counting Jews that are following Yeshua and the Brit HaChadashah. 500,000 Messianic Jews. Interesting. Radar Shadow said he reads the chat, but it spans 3 days. Indeed. Sneezer says, Jesus tells his followers to lead by example. Most Christians judge, and worse, make the judgments known. Yes, it's one thing to judge inside. It's like, it's another thing to like be, you know what, you're blah, 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 and judge a person outwardly. Now, which raises the question, when do we judge others? When do we confront them? When do we rebuke them? Do we ever need to rebuke them? I mentioned a week or two ago, I mentioned that the Talmud says that the sages, at the time of the Second Temple, when it was still standing, mind you, our sages said that they are very much doubtful whether or not people can give proper rebuking, whether they know how to rebuke, whether people can receive proper rebuke or receive rebuke in a proper way. And if they said that at the time when the Second Temple was still standing, and these were such interesting times, then I don't know what would I say. BMXer says to Robert, okay, either way, truth is not decided on numbers, and the majority does not equal truth. Yes, that's quite a distinction. Majority does not equal truth. Agreed, said Sneezer. Majority doesn't equal truth, though to society it does. Well, that's making a very broad generalization, don't you think? To society, majority equals truth? I wonder how much that is true. I wonder. Missing the mark, accusing, says Sneezer, not understanding their motivation. Even when we judge ourselves, it's usually on result, not intent. Result is in God's hands. You just do you and keep on trying to do better. Boom. That's exactly what it's all about. You do you and keep on trying to do better. Bad will happen anyway, of course. Very familiar with The Little Prince, but the show, not the book. No, I'm talking about the book. Interestingly, in my first year of yeshiva, when I was 18 years old, we started learning Rabbi Nachman of Breslev's collection of tales. And these are very special tales, and some of them were ones that were going around at the time in Eastern Europe, but he kind of made them kosher, if you will, and he told them in a way which, well, if you're interested, look into it. It's called Sipurei Ma'asiyot, Stories and Tales, by Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, told by him, written by his disciple, his apprentice, Rabbi Natan of Nemirov. And before we started learning, in my first year of yeshiva, before we started learning that book by Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, we learned as an introduction, we learned The Little Prince by Saint Exupéry. is it Antoine Saint-Exupéry, right? Something like that, yeah, or bit of a longer name. Anyway, part of the reason why we learned The Little Prince as an introduction to the tales and stories of Rabbi Nachman is because precisely of lines like this. And while we're at it, I'm going to read, because it's a few lines here where I read that one line about seeing with your heart. Um, so I'll read just the 7 lines in succession. The first line, the first quote, "Don't be too fond of numbers." The second, "Look after the planet." The third, "Don't judge others by their words, but by what they do." The fourth, "Relationships make life worth living." The fifth, "The important thing in life you cannot see with your eyes, only with your heart." The sixth, "It is the time you give to something that makes it precious." And the final line here, "And finally, remember to look up at the stars." Those 7 lines, which I Googled the line that I wanted to say, paraphrasing it, and it gave me that line, and with 6 others, those were the 7 I just read. There is such wisdom and such interesting perspective in The Little Prince. And that's why we learned it in yeshiva as an introduction to the tales and stories of Rabbi Nachman in Sipurei Ma'asiyot in my first year. And I think that there are some things I learned from that book, The Little Prince and Sipurei Ma'asiyot, that have truly stuck with me. And this was over 20 years ago. There are many things I learned in yeshiva that I still carry with me to this very day. And thank God for that. I was so privileged to take time after high school, before the army, 3 years, to just sit and learn Torah and be with others in a group, in a collective, away from home, right? Sleeping away at a yeshiva, in a dorm. What a time to be alive, people. What a time. Wow. It's amazing that I could do that. And God bless my parents for financing that. 3 years. And 3 years, and then I went off to the army, right? But and then I was married, and I was married already, and then I had my own home. But for 3 years after high school, before the army, I took it was supposed to be 1 year. I was supposed to go just for 1 year. But towards the end of my first year in yeshiva, I was like, no. I need a lot more time here. I need a lot more time. And it wasn't very clear up until a few weeks before I was supposed to be drafted, or maybe a couple of months. I was supposed to go in that summer. And in around springtime or close to summer, I was like, no, I'm not ready to go to the army yet. I need more time here. And thank God the army allowed me to postpone my enlistment, my draft, until 2 years later. Thank God for that. I also got to go to yeshiva after the army, but as part of that whole thing. But those few years after high school and before the army were such a blessing, such a blessing. I can't stress how much impact it's had on me. I really can't. Okay, oh man, I'm blahing here, gushing over my yeshiva years. But being in a yeshiva is an amazing experience. Amazing. You know how they say that there were the clouds of glory in the desert that followed the Israelites around, the divine presence that was always surrounding them, the pillar of smoke, the pillar of fire that was showing them the way and guiding them through the wilderness? That was yeshiva for me. It was clouds of glory. It was a pillar of fire and smoke. And it was simply showing me the way. I learned so much. And not just Torah, right? Torah as life. Torah as a practical implementation of what is a Hebrew person, what am I here to do. Just an amazing time. Truly amazing. Okay, I'm done now. I'm done with my yeshiva rant. Let's continue. The most valuable things can only be felt by the heart, said Sneezer. Radar Shadow said, on nothing, we use that word when we perceive not. When we perceive not. Do you mean when we perceive something in the negative? Or do you mean when we don't perceive? Sneezer, love the long comments after chat. Yes, I do too, and I'm sorry, I only got to read a few of them before I went back here, and I still have the Tuesday and Wednesday chat to go through. Am I ever going to... I hope and pray that I'll always be trying to catch up. I'll always be trying to catch up. Sneezer says to Robert, glad you do. Feel free to reply. I genuinely only do it to shows I don't attend live. Ariel says, disappointed to miss yesterday's chat, bumped into somebody at the wrong time. Wondering if you shared an incredible personal experience with us. No, I haven't yet. It is on my list in my notes of things I need to get to. And no, I haven't yet. Because I have incredible personal experiences, definitely. What you asked is a personal story or experience that I've had which proves something in Tanakh that people think is nonsense. I'm paraphrasing, right? Something like that. So that, I don't have that on hand. Sneezer says, I used to proofread my mom's sermons before church several times, then have to sit through them in the 2-3 churches she preached at. I thought it made me an expert till Jesus showed me what it all meant, LOL. Voila. So you're the son, I think you mentioned it, that you're the son of a preacher. BMXers says, such things as God and karma is as real to me as physical things are. Radar says, sober alcoholics have earned a new chance. Yes, they have. I mean, I can't even imagine what people need to go through to stay sober if they're alcoholics. I really, really have no idea. Andre, do you have dreads? I think he does right now. Yeah, he still does. He cut them off at some point. He grew. It's his second or third set of dreadlocks. Caesar says, what birthright did Jesus extend? Being an Israelite, a chosen child of God. Okay. Talmud says to rebuke, Jesus was not a fan. Okay, sure, but it also, the Mishnah, the sages in the Mishnah, which preceded the Talmud, the sages in the Mishnah said, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Mishnah, or even if it was the Talmud, it doesn't make a difference, because we had different sages and different opinions coming from different schools of thought and philosophy and practical traditions that differed according to the tribe that the rabbi or sage came from. So there was always something where you had a difference of opinion. Part of what Talmud is, part of what halachic discussion facilitates is, okay, we have all these opinions, we have all these traditions, we have all these ways of going about it, but what do we give to the people as a codified, unified way of being in the world? And that really, really happened more so after the destruction of the Second Temple. But not only, definitely not only. Halacha was around forever, pretty much. It's just that ever since the temple was destroyed, it says in the Talmud that, and I've mentioned this, right, that ever since the destruction of the temple, God only has 4 cubits of halacha in this world. Robert says, Sneezer says, the disciples, though, still suggested it. Jesus preferred to rebuke through parable, to be understood later in private. That is an awesome way of going about it. That is an awesome way of going about it. You know, I was taught as a boy growing up in a religious school, part of honoring your mother and your father is not to be straightforward with rebuking them, and not to say, mother, father, you're doing something against the Torah. What you do is you be kind of snide about it a little bit. You go from indirectly and you say, hey, Papa, does the Torah say this and this and that? And, you know, from that, the father understands that, well, it's a kind of rebuking without rebuking. So I see what you mean. To be understood later in private. That's a wonderful way to rebuke. If you're going to do it, I think that's a good way to do it. Right? There's praise in public, chastise in private, something like that, right? I'm screwing it up, but yeah. But then he did flip tables. Yes, right? The money changers at the temple, if I'm not mistaken, right? Now, you needed them there. People came with foreign coins. People came there with money in order to buy sacrifices, because if you need to sacrifice a bull, right, and a few rams, or whatever it is, you're not necessarily going to carry them from all the way up north or all the way down south. You come to Jerusalem with the money, and you buy sacrificial animals that were there for sale. Now, I don't quite remember what the deal was with the flipping of the tables. I think he didn't flip them, I believe, just because they were there. I think he flipped them because was there kind of cheating going on? Were they not being honest? Were they not being righteous, as the Torah says? Or was it simply because they were there? I'm not sure. Do you, HN, and guys in the chat try to read Torah or Tanakh every day, no matter how little or much? Yes, I do try to read. And if I don't read, then I... okay, well, no. What if I don't read? Do you try to read? Yes, I do. I try to read Torah every single day, whether it's alone, whether it's with the kids. So yeah, I try to. I can't say I do it every single day, but yes, I do. I do try. That's right. I don't know why I didn't pretty. Oh, that's I don't. I didn't pretty long dreadlocks. He says. Yes, I think they are. They are. His are pretty long. Ariel says. I guess I know how I will be spending the rest of my birthday then, by the Christian calendar. That is. Happy birthday. Good for you. Have a new wonderful trip around the sun. May it be fruitful. May it be beneficial. May it be a blessing to you and others. Health, wellness, and nachas to all. Nachas means contentment. It's with a Yiddish twang. It's nachat, but there's no, but in Yiddish it's, or Ashkenazis, it's nachas. I have a stream, says Sneezer, that plays 24/7 New Testament. I have read much of the Old Testament, know more about it than most Christians too, but I think for true absorption, you need to be fluent in ancient Hebrew. Well, I obviously am biased, and I'm thinking if you're going to understand something to the degree that you can anyway, it ought to be in the original language that it was written in. Same thing with the Quran and with Arabic. Same thing with any sacred text, I think, right? Sanskrit and the Vedas or and the other texts. Robert says, in the Garden of Eden was there marijuana, and I wonder what it was for. Marijuana is Spanish, says BMXers. Well, I definitely think that there was. It's a plant. It was for building huts only, says Sneezer with a grin. BMXers says for tobacco, ironically. The last bit I didn't know, said Sneezer. Robert says, I don't use it, but I mean think about it. Was there? I believe it was. I believe it was too. Ariel Marshall says, Le Petit Prince was the first book I remember in French, I think, despite not speaking any. So, wait, you don't speak it, but you read it in French? How does that go? Radar says, perceive not works whether there is an object to be seen or there is no object. Both are positive. Perceive not works whether there is an object to be seen or not. Okay. Ariel, parlez-vous français? Asks BMXers. So wait, radar shadow. There is an object to be seen, or there is no object. Both are positives. Both are positives? I'm not exactly following that logic. Maybe I'm just getting it wrong because it's been almost an hour. All right, let's continue here. No, I wanna stop there with radar shadow and what he said. Perceive not works whether there is an object to be seen, and there is no object. Both are positives. Somebody explain it to me, dumb it down for me. I'm sorry, it's late, it's almost 11 p.m. Dreams, Robert Harrison says, I've always wanted to know some of Yonatan's dreams and Andre's. I got some doozies. Sneezer says, oh, I totally know what it's like to believe something others think is nonsense and not be able to prove it by nature. Right? You know, it's these things we hold on to. These things I hold on to. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if it's about proving it either. It's about how you conduct yourself, because the way that you conduct yourself in the world is the fruit of that which you believe. Not always. We all have, again, things in which we do that we probably should not and ought not, and things that go kind of against our conscience and are a, what's it called, a performative dissonance, right? Or something like that, where we act out something that we don't really believe we should. But by and large, when we act out our beliefs, the fruit bespeaks the root. In other words, you see an apple, you know, oh, it came from an apple tree, and the root of that tree is an apple, is of an apple tree. If you see an orange, you don't think that the root was an apple, because the fruit bespeaks the root. And I think that's the way to do it. It's like you don't need to prove it if you act it out, because you yourself are living proof. You know what I'm saying? Dreams at night, says Robert Harrison. Sneezer says, I speak broken Quebecer. So that's a type of French-Canadian, right? Or Canadian-French. I have a dream I wanted to tell HN, but nothing about Yeshua, said BMXers. Free Palestine, says Saifullah Gina. Is it Gina or Gina? I'm not sure. Yes, free Palestine from those assholes Hamas. I agree. Free Palestine from terrorism. Free Palestine from Iran. Free Palestine from all the crap. And may the people of Gaza be able to live in peace, side by side with Israel. And maybe, God forbid, even together. Huh? What do you say? What do you say? We can make stuff happen. Tell it, brother, says Robert. Temple is not supposed to be about money. Okay, it's not about money, but you had to sometimes buy sacrificial animals or grain or wine or oil. Because, sometimes you're coming from somewhere far away and you're not going to carry all that stuff with you for the journey. So I understand why there was I understand why the money changers were there. But it's not supposed to be about money is exactly right. Saifullah says, Islam is perfect. Well, as I've said, my view of Islam has been warped by war and terrorism and bloodshed and horror. So I cannot exactly share your view of Islam, unfortunately for you, so I will speak not of Islam. My apologies. Sneezer says, nor sacrifice despite what Moses claimed. So it's not about money nor sacrifice. Well, it became about sacrificial elements. It became about that. And let's not forget Cain and Abel. And that was before the tabernacle. That was before the temple. Cain and Abel, right? They brought offerings to the Lord. So the temple is about making an offering. Again, acting out something in the practical life that you're living. That's why they slaughtered animals. That's why they brought grain. That's why they brought water and wine and oil. That's why they had all the different ritual worship of the temple, because it was physical, practical worship that coincided with what's called the kavanot, the ways in which people, the Israelites, the Levites, the priests, the way in which they oriented their mind in order to reveal divinity in the world in their specific way, in that specific instance, whether it was this sacrifice or that sacrifice, animal or vegetarian. Okay, let's see. Wait, Ariel, says BMXers, it's your birthday? Happy birthday, man. And once again, happy birthday to you. Saifullah says, there are millions of Muslims that memorize the Quran. Yeah? That's neither here nor there, man. I agree. Millions and millions who memorize the Quran. I've been working with Muslims, throughout my life. I've always listened when they had them on to the people chanting the different surot, and it is a lovely chant. It is. It really is. So that's neither here nor there. There are many, many Christians, many Hindus, many Hebrews who memorize other sacred texts. So that's neither here nor there, I'm afraid. Robert said, Yeshua said, you destroyed this temple, his body. I will raise it in 3 days. The Purushim, the Pharisees, didn't know what he meant. Okay. Well, all right. The Purushim didn't know what he meant. Did they think that he meant the actual temple? Or did they know that it meant his body? Because if they did know that he was referencing his body, presumably they would know what he meant by raising it. Submission is not always perfect, says BMXers, right? I agree. Submission is not always perfect. Though it can be. If it's not perfect, it's because we are imperfect, not because the idea of submission before God isn't perfect. That idea, I think, does have great merit, and maybe on that we can speak in some sort of an absolute. It is we, the imperfect, who make it imperfect through our actions as we attempt to submit to the will of God. Sneezer says they assumed he meant the building, not knowing the body is the temple. I see. Okay, so that answers my question there. Both are true. Both are true statements. Both are positives. I see. I see what you mean, Radar. If it's there or if it's not there. Okay, whether there's an object there or not, both of those are true. Oy, I think I'm getting a little tired. I'm gonna keep going now. Oh man, I didn't get to even like a 10th of what I wanted to get to in the previous chats and in Sneezer's comments from a few days ago. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm so happy. I'm so glad. I'm so thankful, so grateful to the Most High and to you, good people, who are so engaging, so lovely, so great to have a dialogue with. I just get sucked right into it. And I really do love to be enveloped by your experiences, your wisdom, your words. It's lovely. It really is. BMXers, says Sneezer, um, share your dream if you like, but beware of those who would forge a future from them. That's good. That's sage advice. Sneezer also said, that's how I take it now. I don't have to prove myself, nor Jesus. Jesus is quite capable of proving himself, and I've already been through God's judgment. Voila. Sneezer says, continues, and says, oh, Robert said, happy birthday, Ariel. And Sneezer said, Jesus valued the donation of the poor widow, only a tiny sliver of metal she'd saved, more than the pounds the noble squandered into the temple. Yeah, when the Torah speaks of the mincha, of the vegetarian offering, it says nefesh, a soul that will bring forth an offering. And the reason why it says that, and in other cases it doesn't, it's because our sages teach us, is because why does the vegetarian offering speak of the soul, speak of the nefesh? It's because when a relatively poor person, somebody who is experiencing poverty, who can't afford a living sacrificial animal to slaughter, right? They can't afford an animal, so they bring grain. And this offering, when you bring it, the Torah says it's as if you are bringing your very soul. So that goes along with what the Torah says, right? What Jesus valued there, Sneezer. So I understand why he did. Sneezer continues and says, the former did not worship Mammon. The noble with money do. Mammon meaning material plenty, material plenty, and what would be the precise? Well, Mammon means riches, money, usually. BMXer says to Sneezer, I might in the comment section, but I wanted to tell Hebrew Nazarite private, actually. Hey, go for it. Hit me up in the chat. Amzaleg, 79. Amzaleg is a last name that is usually a Moroccan, if I'm not mistaken. It's a surname, a family name. I've known Moroccans, love Jews. What's love? Yes, I suppose I do. There are many Jews that I do love. And yes indeed. Amzaleg 79, good to see you here, man. Good to see you. Shalom Aleichem. Mammon has plenty of gold to buy forgiveness with, except for 2,000 years, there's no sacrifices accepted. I'm not understanding. Is Mammon the name of a person? Because Mammon is a word in Hebrew, right? Meaning riches or money. Okay, so I'm not sure what you mean. But okay. Robert Harrison says, if BMXer's dreams are as funny as his stories, it will be a doozy. BMXer says, Islam means submission, not peace. Yes, it means submission. That's correct. Emma, hello, Emma. Jesus is Lord. All right, so says you. I disagree. BMXer says, saying it means peace, as many Muslims lyingly do, is al-taqiyya. So taqiyya is basically lying to non-believers, lying to the infidels in order to bring them close to Islam, if I'm not mistaken. Robert Harrison asks, are your locks at your ankles or lower? No, they're not in my ankles yet. I had a few that their tips fell off during my time in the Netherlands. I had a few of the longer ones, and their tips were kind of frail. The tips and some, because something like this fell off at the time from a few of my longer dreads. So they're not at my ankles. They're almost at my knees, almost at my knees. And one of them might already be this one right here might already be at my right knee. Emma, amen, says Sneezer. Radar says, you show a friend an empty box. He says it has nothing in it. He fails to perceive that without air inside, the atmosphere would crush the box. Yes, there's also the idea in physics and quantum mechanics, more than just regular physics, I believe, that if you have an empty box, as long as there are atoms in that box, over the course of time, over the course of millions, billions, and trillions of years, anything and everything imaginable will and can and will be formed or have the possibility, the capacity to be formed inside that box, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a real like take on Schrodinger and the box of is there, isn't there? But everything is made of atoms, and over time these atoms shift and change. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's some hypothesis, right, in some kind of advanced physics that I know very little about. But I heard that. I was watching a Netflix documentary a long time ago. It must have been close to a year and a half ago. And I was watching a documentary on quantum mechanics and on string theory, and someone made that someone put forth that hypothesis that over time it will be anything and everything will come out of that box, or has the ability to come out of that box, where previously there was either something or nothing to perceive. Subscribe, leave a comment, hit the like, says Robert. Appreciate it, man. Though you don't have to. I appreciate it, obviously, all the same. Hello, hi, amen, says Emma. Ariel says, it was the first book I remember my parents giving me as a baby, but I could barely speak English, let alone French. Had nice illustrations, though. Yes, it does have very nice illustrations. As long as no one observes it, says Radar, regarding the box. I understand. Mammon used to God like Baal or Mal. Okay. Being a god like the Molech or like Baal. Okay, I understand what you mean now. Okay. Mammon like God. But still, do you mean Mammon being that which you worship? Or do you mean the actual name of a deity called Mammon? Because I do know that there was a Manon, M-A-N-O-N, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there was a Mammon. Maybe it's the same deity in a different dialect. I don't know. Robert Harrison says, if you ever meet Andre, you need to jump over a fence and holler, where's the weed? Yeah, but I should do it with a voice of authority. BMXer says, nope, mine is not as long as his then, not close. Comment section is gonna be lit, says Robert. Emma says, Jesus is the Son of God. Hard to disagree there, Emma. Jesus wants to heal your shin problem. My shin problem? Do you mean shin as in the Hebrew letter shin? Or do you mean sin? Or do you mean my shin? Please, it could be either one of those. I need to know. BMXer says, Robert, I don't smoke anymore. Anything because of my lungs. A wise decision, BMXers. Wise decision. I'm also glad you don't. Mirroring what Robert said. Sorry, my keyboard is lagging big time. Okay, yeah, I misspelled. All right. So which one is it? I still don't know which one it is. But hey, good news. I got to the end of this chat right now, which means I will be going. You have pain in your shin. I have a pain in my shin? Do I? Do I have pain in my shin? I have the possibility of pain in next to my kneecap. And I say possibility because I had an injury in the Netherlands a few years ago. But I think that if it does ever flare up and cause me pain, it will only be when I'm older, when old injuries start to bother me. Maybe by then medicine will be so advanced that I'll be able to completely fix it. What do you mean by you have pain in your shin? Are you prophesying something, predicting something? Are you... Emma, help me understand. Place your hand on it. I will pray. Okay, the right shin or the left shin? You got to give me instructions here. Football bueno, says Bong, James Bong. Incidentally, today in the comments, in the community tab, I had a post, England or Spain or meh soccer. Choose one. So far, we have England being the favorite out of a few people who participated in this poll. If you want to give your opinion on Spain, England, or meh soccer, go ahead and check out the poll in the in the community section in the posts. Ariel says, my best friend at the time, Aurelian, only spoke French also. Strange childhood, strange life. Strange life indeed. You only get one set of lungs, said Robert Harrison. I concur. You do. Speedrunner says, in my mind, Jesus is a soccer player, hence the shin bruises. Everybody else in the world uses the wrong name and calls it football. All right, I'm going to go because before I started reading some of Sneezer's comment, and then I went to the chat from Tuesday, and now I'm going to go back to the chat from last night, from Wednesday, read a few comments there. Okay. Ezra said, the holy conscious use of the physical world is a key means to serving God. Wealth can provide us with food, clothing, shelter, and other needs. Right, so it's a means to an end, is what Ezra is saying. It's a means to an end. The physical world is a key, a means to serving God. Sneezer said, the center of time was more like Valhalla, a banquet hall where we all celebrated each other's lives over ever-burning candles made from rapists, and drinking the tears they shed. Holy crap, what a visual. But you said that the center of time, if I'm not mistaken, well, more like Valhalla, doesn't, I may be misremembering how you phrased it last time, but when you were talking about time, before time, after time, center of time, you mentioned Eden being the center of time, or something to that effect, where there is no time, it's the very center of it, but you didn't mention anything about it resembling Valhalla, so I'm curious. Robert Harrison says, I love the video of the name of God on the golden gate the Messiah will walk through. So yeah, yesterday I visited the old city at the request of BMXers, and I took some footage of the gate of mercy, the golden gate, where it's said, according to tradition, the Messiah will walk through. That's why part of why it's blocked up. That's why there's a Muslim cemetery there. Speedrunner said, I gave up the couch distortion game, became enlightened through the abyss. Well, you certainly have a way with words, Speedrunner, I'll give you that. I gave up the couch distortion game, became enlightened through the abyss. And I'm assuming he means like the Nietzschean, was it Nietzsche, right? If you stare long enough at the abyss, it's going to stare right back into you. And then if you stare even longer and you beat the abyss in the staring contest, you'll be able to see the light that comes at the very, very depth of it, that comes through it, despite everything. Sneezer said to Ezra, in my opinion, wealth is always a test and should be used either for career building or charity alone. Whoa, that's highly restrictive. I'm not saying that's very charitable and very practical, but it's also highly restrictive. But I understand what you mean. Sneezer said, one cannot worship both gold and God. Walla. Sneezer continued, and Robert said, I need a good Andre police story. A good police story. Sneezer said to Speedrunner, doesn't surprise me, that's a common experience, right, of being enlightened through the abyss. Speedrunner says, but wouldn't you have to be also flipped upside down for the brain to fall out? Right, because I said someone told me at the time that I shouldn't be so open-minded that my brain falls out. Good call. I would have to be upside down, right? I would. That is a very good call. Sneezer says, the seat of honor in the banquet hall, between the kings and queens we all are, is each of us in turn. In Eden, just us and our love in a perfect day, watched by all, LOL. Again, that's quite a visual. A perfect day, right? Shabbat, right? A perfect day. I'm thankful, says Ezra, I was born a Jew. The world is too complicated. I agree. It really is too complicated. I'm so happy I've got Torah and commandments to help orient me, to help guide me. It doesn't mean I do 100%. Far, far from it. But whenever I do need kind of guidance, I turn to God. Whenever I need guidance, I turn to the Torah. I turn to the commandments and the covenant, and it helps. It really, truly helps. And even if people will say it's all nonsense, man-made fairy tales, the proof is in the pudding. And I think that at least over time, I have been able to have it guide me in a way which is proper, even though I fall short of the ideal every single day, and I miss the mark several times every single day. The fact that it's still that which I am on my way to, it's so important. It really, really is so important to me. We all need nisim, miracles. So nes is the singular, nisim is the plural. Next miracle, said Sneezer, is world peace, though there is an odd pre-scheduled between. The next miracle is world peace, though there is an odd pre-scheduled between. What do you mean? The odd what pre-scheduled between? You didn't say. Okay. Great distraction this has been, said Bloodnose. Be well. I guess I'm arriving at the end of the chat from last night. Our favorite daily tradition right here, says Speedrunner. Thank you, I appreciate it. It's one of my favorite traditions too, if you can call it a tradition. Anyway, it's a lovely point and definitely a high point in my evening. Sneezer says, at this point I gotta say to make sure he good, lol. Birkat Kohanim, said Ezra. What do you mean? Did he mean he wanted me to do the priestly blessing? That's what Birkat Kohanim means. He's just waiting for me to leave, said Sneezer, and Bloodnose gave a heart. What a stream, thank you, said Speedrunner. Okay, we're done with Wednesday. We're done with last night's chat. I still have some of the chat from 2 days ago, and I still have some of Sneezer's comments from a couple of days ago, but I will, right now, continue with the chat that's happening right now. Let's continue. Where did I stop? Okay. Robert says, I can't wait to read the comments section, Sneezer and BMXers. Sneezer says, safe travels, Speedy. Oh, Speedrunner says, thank you for the stream. I got to go myself, unfortunately. Glad to drop in. Thank you for dropping in. I really appreciate it. BMXer says, my lungs is messed up from smoking too much. Sneezer said to Emma, if that was misdirected, thank you. Misdirected. Speaking of a shin, speaking of Sneezer's shin, not sure. Ariel, okay, you're from Canada then, says BMXers. Does anybody on here ever pray for HN? What do you mean pray for HN? I'm not sure what you mean. Sneezer says, LOL, let him get to the next comment. Emma Towner says, the Messiah has come, his name is Jesus. Okay, so says you. Where is he? Show him to me, the physical human being. If we are going to crown a Messiah and give him the throne, he must be a living, breathing, walking, talking member of the tribes of Israel. Where is he? He can't be spirit. He can't be in my heart. He can't be some amorphous thing. He must be a living, breathing human being. He is not. Because even Christians and followers of Yeshua who claim that he ascended on the third day, they also claim that, if I'm not mistaken, he went up there to sit with his heavenly Father, right? Which means that he is no longer flesh, blood, bone, and guts. So he cannot be Messiah without that. And if you're talking about the second coming, if somebody does arrive, then we don't crown the dead. We crown the living. That's the Hebrew way. That's the way of the Torah. Let's continue. Many people have told him that, says Robert. Ariel said he's a goner or a gooner, because gooner could be part of the Goonies. Gooner could be that he's part of a goon squad. So, Terry team to associate with. I'm not sure what you mean there, Ariel. Robert said, I was just wondering, I pray for you all that you know Jesus. He is incredible. I have no doubt, Emma, that he is incredible for you. I have no doubt that Jesus has touched your life seriously, but okay. I also understand that you have received the good news and you want to share it. So good for you. But I don't follow the dead. I simply don't. But thank you, I appreciate the prayers. Emma, I know him. Hallelujah, she said. We need a dream video from HN, says Robert. Well, we'll see about that. Sneezer says, the odd miracle pre-scheduled between absence of a world insinuates duplication. Again, the odd miracle pre-scheduled between absence of a word insinuates duplication. Absence of a word insinuates duplication. I'm not sure what it means that it insinuates duplication. Could you clarify that a bit? Ariel says, born in London, made in Mallorca, and the furthest north I have stayed in America was Indiana or Ohio. I don't know U.S. geography too well, I gotta tell you. So, but, okay, born in London, made in Mallorca, interesting. Sneezer says, a bunch more comments coming from Wednesday, almost ready to submit to that vid. Robert says, the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. All right, so that's the priestly blessing in English. Definitely, definitely. James Bong says, it's a gorgeous day out here in the USA, and this is, what? It's the sun, it's a piece of meat, it's a fire, barbecue weather. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day, night, wherever you are on. Thank you, I appreciate that. I hope you're having a great day too. It was a very nice day today as well. Hot, but very nice. Sneezer says, why must he be all those things? Well, okay, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, unfortunately. Emma says, oh, why must he be all those things? Because if you're going to follow a king according to the Hebrew faith and history of the kings, we do not follow the dead. We have only followed living kings. That doesn't mean you can't break with tradition, but it means that if you're going to start following the dead, you might be kind of skirting on the edges of something the Torah is completely against. It's a living Torah, for the living. The dead have nothing to do with the Torah unless it is to come here and teach the living, but not for the living to follow them as kings, right, and messiahs. There have been many times and many people who have said they had revelations of this patriarch or that patriarch, of this sage or that sage, of Elijah, but it was always not for them to be following them, but for them to be taught by them. So that makes a huge difference. So why must he be all those things? Because we are living people. And the Torah says, choose life. It says, I give you the blessings and the curses. I give you life and death. Choose life, that you may live, that your children and their children may live and prosper on the land that was promised to our ancestors. That's what the Torah is about. It's not about following the dead. Definitely not. However, once we partake of the fruit of the tree of life, and there is that expulsion of death, expulsion of evil, then it's open season for whoever you want. And as far as I'm concerned, it could very well be that when we all partake of that fruit of the tree of life, back in Eden, fulfill our task, complete our mission, live in that perfect day of Edenic Sabbath, then for all I know, it could be Yeshua HaNotzri, it could be Yeshua HaNotzri, who rises up and is crowned. I have no idea. But for now, I follow the living, I don't follow the dead, and that's why he must be all of those things in order to be considered the Messiah apparent, right? A potential Messiah. Because he needs to rally the people, fight the wars, build the temple, eradicate Amalek, according to some interpretations. And through other interpretations, he doesn't need to do all those things. But according to any interpretation of Mashiach, there are two. Mashiach, son of Joseph, and Mashiach, son of David. Mashiach, son of Joseph, representing a kind of material Messiah. Mashiach, son of David, representing a more spiritual Messiah. And much like you first build a temple and then God's divinity dwells in it, God's revelation dwells in it, you need to have the physical presence for the spiritual to ride on, right? You need to have the physical chariot on which the spiritual can reside and ride and dwell. In the same way, Mashiach ben Yosef is said to come, right, to precede the Mashiach ben David, the son of David. Now, I've heard Christians and Messianics claim that Yeshua was the Mashiach of Joseph, but not of David, even though some claim he was of the line of David. And I've heard people claim that no, he was the son of David, Mashiach ben David, truly, wholly, honestly, completely. But there's a big but, and I cannot lie. The way that we understand our history, the way that we understand Torah in a very basic pshat kind of way, is that we do not follow the dead. It is dangerous to follow the dead. We are commanded not to seek them out. We are commanded not to go to them for counsel. We are commanded to, even if we do have some sort of contact with the dead, it's in a way where they might come here and teach us, where we have a kind of connection, a thread, if you will, connecting the dead and the living. But never have we ever followed dead kings. That's simply the way that it is. He was crucified, says Emma. He ascended and is seated on the throne at the right hand side of the Father. He is coming back soon. Right, precisely my point. Precisely my point. So, for all I know, he may come back. Oh, Gunner, Arsenal. Okay. Football club. Gotcha. To be Messiah, all he needs to do is lead us, and millions are led by him. It doesn't matter the Hebrew way, it matters God's way. Okay, fair enough, but for me, as a Hebrew person who sticks to the Hebrew covenant, I go with the Torah. I go with the commandments. I go with the way God has to do with me. And maybe that's very egocentric of me, but that is the ways of my fathers and their fathers before them. And that tradition of going with the living and the Torah being a Torah of the living for the living, who still have free will, who can still perform these commandments, that is a great pillar of Torah, right? That it's for the people who will be actually walking with it, living it, carrying it out in this world, right? It's not for those who have shed their mortal coil. It's not for those who have shed the body. Haile Selassie is the second coming, said BMXers. James Bong says, God bless Israel richly. Baruch Hashem. Thank you. I appreciate the kind sentiment. I think God needs to bless us to get our act together, all of humanity, and lie a little bit less every day and bring world peace. Sneezer says no, because that would mean retyping the original comment, and my keyboard is way too messed up for that right now. For you, inshallah, for me, outshallah, says BMXers. He rose from the dead, hallelujah, said Emma. Ariel said, Gunner, Arsenal Football Club. Jesus plays for Arsenal, an awful team to be associated with from Asper's supporters' perspective. See, it's the Premier League. The Premier League is a league that I know nothing about. When I was a wee lad, I used to be a fan of Manchester United only because I loved watching them play. I loved watching them play. Good English football is good football. It's great soccer. It really, really is. And at the time, Manchester United had a few unbeatable folks. Unbeatable. I mean, they took to the pitch. They went on the soccer field. And you just knew that something awesome is about to happen when they came on that pitch. Sneezer says, but we are not following Hebrew faith. We are following our hearts. Right, and this is where we disagree. And that's fine. You go with your Son of God. I go with my teachings. That's why I have absolutely no problem with you wanting to share the good news. I do believe that for you, it is great news. I don't hold it against you, as I've said many times, that you want to share it, but I don't plan on being persuaded, turned, or to see something which is not there. And I don't mean see visually. I mean, I simply won't be going that way because I have the teachings of my fathers and you have yours, and that's the way that it is, at least for now. But as I said, I definitely understand all the followers of Yeshua telling me, oh, come to Jesus, come to Jesus. I know what they're talking about. I do. From my perspective, I know what they mean. Just came to leave. Greetings and wish you good health. Eiler, good to see you. Good health to you. Wonderful that you dropped by. Thank you. Many thanks. Ariel, don't know where Mallorca is. It's an island, isn't it an island? I might be mistaken. Mallorca, I think it's a very pretty island, if I'm not mistaken. Hit the like button, said Robert. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Right now, just as an aside, we have 11 people in the chat and 5 likes. Oh, 12 people in the chat and 5 likes. Thank you so much. This is such an awesome stream. I've been going for nearly an hour and a half, and I think I'm going to, unfortunately, have to go soon. One day you will see. It's not at all about how you think it has to be. It's about how God made it. Okay, that's a statement that I understand that you get behind. I'm willing to even accept that that might be the case, because what the hell do I know, right? So if you want to keep praying for me to see Jesus, go for it. Keep praying. James Bong, I like your style, says BMXers. Who got the vaccine? I mean, I got, if you're talking about Rona, I got one and a booster, maybe a second booster, and then I tuned out. Sneezer says, I listened to my warning about the vax, pure blood here. So many didn't. Yep. Pure bloods are rare these days. Okay. Sneezer says, so who is your king, HN? You keep dodging the question. Adonai is my king. Adonai is my king. My creator is my king. I don't have a physical king because we haven't anointed him yet. We haven't accepted a human king of the tribes of Israel. There are some contenders, and there are some who threw their hat into the ring and who say that they are Messiah. But until the people come together and anoint them physically by the river, then they are not Messiahs, because they have not been anointed. Messiah literally means anointed one. So even technically speaking, they are not Messiahs. Now, in order for somebody, according to Maimonides and others, in order for somebody to be a potential Messiah, they need to act in a kingly way and, right, like I said, eradicate Amalek, build the temple, rally the people, fight their wars. Again, not all of those things, but at least the beginning of those things. And they need to be alive, because you're not going to anoint a corpse. It doesn't work that way. So my king is Adonai, right? Atahu malki Elohim tzavei yeshuot Yaakov. That's a verse from the Psalms. You are my king, Lord. Command the deliverance of Jacob. That's my king. Pure bloods, says BMXers. Went down loads of rabbit holes about the world we live in, says Emma. I believe that. There are many, many rabbit holes to pursue. Robert says to Sneezer, he doesn't have one. I guess he would say Melech David. So, no, I mean, I don't have a human king. I have a kingly king, let's say. The king of kings. Melech Malchem, the king of the kings. The king of the king of kings. Melech Malchei HaMelachim, as he's known. That's one of his nicknames. One of his names. Melech Malchei HaMelachim. Sneezer says to Robert, okay, and what did David do that was so great? Sneezer says he didn't teach the world to love or bring world peace, did he? He did not. Robert said to Sneezer, I'm just saying Yeshua is my melech, but most Jews would say David. Sneezer says even Krishna, or I'm assuming you mean Krishna, even Krishna was a better king than David. Robert said to Emma, I would say if you're concerned, pray for him. BMXer says, yep, and people here, nobody can help the religion they are born in. It's difficult for you to part with you were taught, just as it is for others of other religions, faiths. Sneezer says, I figured HN would say either Moses, the accuser, or himself. Odin, nice to see you here, man. And on Thor's day of all days. Nice to see you, Odin. So show me Adonai in the flesh, human form. No, Adonai is not anointed. Adonai is not an anointed one. He's king of creation. But he's not an anointed human king. He is not an anointed human ruler. And the anointed human ruler is a kind of image of the divine attribute we call malchut, kingship, and crown, keter. I mean, from top to bottom, that is. Rather from bottom to top. Right? Okay, so you misunderstand what I meant. We both agree in human form it's not God. Correct, correct. I didn't say that God is Messiah. I said God is King. And the way that God, right, because I don't know God. All I know is how God reveals himself to me. Meaning that the divine attributes laid out in the tree of life, in the 10 sfirot, right? They have Keter at the beginning and Malchut at the end. And that literally translates into a kingly crown, the crown of a king, the crown of the kingdom. So we see that the different revelations of the Most High, and as far as I'm concerned, when I say God is my king, it means that he reveals himself to me from top to bottom, from bottom to top. And should there be a human being of the tribes of Israel that is embraced by the people and anointed by the river, and who acts in a kingly way and receives his crown in righteousness, he will be my human king. But remember what Samuel, my kin, traditionally said when the people wanted a king. He said, don't ask for a king. Adonai is your king. And that's what I'm saying as well. We can skip over Messiah. We can skip over a third temple. We can go indirectly, let's say, and pass all that by and go directly to we are the temple. We bring world peace. When we get our act together, we unify ourselves through love, through truth, through righteousness, and in doing so, we arrive at Eden as a unified human race without the wars needing to be fought, without the temple and the ritual worship and slaughtering of animals, right? Without worshiping God through precious metals and stones, without the grain, without the wine, without the water, without the altars, right? The copper one and the golden one. Do you see what I'm saying? I hope. So I'm not dodging the question. I don't think I ever dodged the question. This has always been my answer. Maybe I understand what you say when you say you dodged the question. I simply don't think I did, because it's not that I'm pulling this out of my ass. This is literally what I've been thinking about the Messiah and the King, dun dun dun, right? And Adonai being revealed in Malchut for a very, very long time. So I have given this thought, make no mistake. So I haven't been dodging the question, but okay. I'm willing to admit and agree that you may think I've been dodging the question, and if I have, please forgive me. I answered it now, hopefully to your satisfaction, maybe not, because look, we're not going to see eye to eye on this issue. Followers of Yeshua, Christians and others, they have Yeshua like drilled into them, and more power to them, good for them. I don't deny that Yeshua, Jesus, Yeshu, however you want to call him, whether you see him as the Son of God or simply as the Messiah or anything in between, I don't deny that some people who accept him into their hearts and into their lives live a real, pure, clean, righteous, good, honest, truthful life. And if that's what they're living, and if that's what Yeshua does for them, more power to them. Really. I simply say, okay, having said that, it's not the Hebrew way. It simply isn't. As I perceive it, I might be wrong about all of this. All of it. Every video I've ever made, every live stream I've ever broadcasted, every short I've ever shortened. I may be wrong about each and everything that I've ever said in the history of my existence. And now my question is, and then what? So what happens now? Do I toss it all out? I don't know. I don't feel like doing that right now, and I don't see the utility in that. So, Mallorca, Ariel says, Mallorca is part of the Balearic Islands, Spain. Balearic. That's interesting. Okay. Rob, actually, I did Proverbs 34. Oh, okay, so he said earlier to Sneezer, they were talking about solving the questions in Proverbs 34. Home of Rafael Nadal. Oh, look at that. Radar says, arguments about names and titles all should seek the common things between the faiths. Yeah, should being the key word here, huh? Okay, so right now... Wait, hold on. Sneezer said, so you demand I show you a human king? No, I make no demands whatsoever. I have no doubt that followers of Yeshua, follow him because they accepted him into their hearts, into their minds, into their lives. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I make no demands of followers of Yeshua or Christians. I simply say, if you're going to tell me to accept a dead person, I'm telling you, show me him living. So other than that, if you're going to demand my compliance, I can make demands too. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that I demand I show you anything. But if you're going to say there is a Messiah and he's here, I say show him. And in the same vein, I say when there is a human king who is crowned and anointed by the people of Israel, I will follow him. I will follow him as my king. I hope and I think so anyway, you know. We haven't had a king in just about 2,000 years or so, right? So since the Hashmonai dynasty, King Agrippas, the Herod II, King Agrippas the first, they were the last kings. So we haven't had a king in about 2,000 years. And that does something, right? Like we haven't had a temple in 2,000 years, and that does something to a people. And again, we must remember, more than half of the 613 commandments pertain directly to the temple worship. So we now in the Hebrew faith, we have kind of what's left of a grand banquet, right? And we're left with like scraps, very dear and near scraps, very important scraps, but scraps nonetheless, in the sense of it's not quite it. It can be, like I said, we can skip over the king, we can skip over the building, we can skip over the sacrifices, get our act together. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. God willing, I will continue. I'm having so much fun here, but I'm starting to feel a bit tired. It's after 11:30 p.m., so I'm going to say goodbye because I want to give you 110%, no more, no less. Well, maybe more, but definitely no less. I want to pay close attention to the things you're saying. I want to give them proper mind, right? I want to have focus. I want to have the verbal ability to contend with what you're saying and answer to the degree that I can, right, in my mishmashed way. Give you my insights if I have any, answers if I have any. So I'm going to say good night from Jerusalem. I'll see you maybe tomorrow, maybe Saturday night, maybe Sunday night, 10 p.m. I don't know. Thank you all for being here. I genuinely appreciate your kind attention, your time, and those who are regulars here, God bless. You know, it's so much fun to have you here regularly and engage with you with this ongoing dialogue, chat, comment, thing that we have here. I'm seriously enjoying my ass off coming here and engaging with you guys, learning from you and having the dialogue with you. It's just so much fun. It is to talk Torah, to talk philosophy and religion and faith and everything in between and history. It enriches me every single day. And I thank you, each and every one of you, for, you could be doing anything else right now, or if you're watching it later, but you're here with me, and I don't take it for granted. I really don't. I hope I'm worthy of your time and kind attention. I really, truly do hope that that I am worth it, that this is worth it. So, I loved this. I will see you another time. I'll make another live stream, I hope, definitely Sunday night. Even though it's the finals of the Euro Cup, I still want to do it. There is a chance there is a chance I'll do it at 9 p.m. on Sunday for an hour, and then watch the finals with my kids, the final of the Euro Cup. I'm not sure, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, let's have a wonderful Sabbath. Maybe I'll do a short tomorrow. Maybe I'll broadcast tomorrow. It's a long day tomorrow, right? These summer days, it's a long time before Sabbath arrives, before the Queen arrives. So who knows? Maybe I'll be here, maybe I won't. I'd hate to leave you hanging, but I have to. Until then, good night from Jerusalem. Much love from Israel.